Welcome to No Camps Podcast. I'm Sunny G.
I'm Akash.
I'm Jason.
And here on the No Camps Podcast, we talk about a variety of TV, film, and other topics. Today, we'll be doing the holy Marvel trifecta of Thor Ragnarok, Black Panther, and the finale Avengers Infity War. So why don't we get started and get some thoughts on Thor Ragnarok?
Yeah, I just saw that again this morning, and man, this movie is so much fun. It is up there in my top top five of all Marvel movies.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, this is required watching before Infinity War. I was just talking to you guys before the pod started. I was saying that if there was to be some sort of movie marathon, this should be right before Infinity War, and then after the end credits, they just start rolling Infinity War. You know, the movie should just go right into it.
Yep.
But I know we discussed this together, but this might be the funniest out of all the movies, the most action-packed. Really helps develop the relationship between Loki and Thor in a more serious way.
Mm-hmm.
And the action scenes are amazing. And again, this movie shows you the actual strength of Thor and legitimizes his powers in Infinity War and makes it that much more believable to me. So what did you guys think?
Totally agree. Yeah. Go ahead, Jason.
No, yeah. I mean, I totally agree too. That's like exactly what I would say too. And it's definitely one of the most unique Marvel movies as well. Just because like it is a comedy and it kind of changes the way it tells a story, which is really, it's one of my favorite movies too. But you're right. It's just Infinity War is like the sequel to Thor Ragnarok, or that's what it feels the most like of all the other Marvel movies.
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny we say that because like I think Spider-Man is meant to be the most comical of all of the franchises within the universe, and I never expected this, especially a pairing of both the Hulk and Thor to be the funniest movie in the franchise. So
yeah, this movie for me definitely saved the Thor franchise after Dark World, which is arguably the worst MCU movie. And you're totally right that like it elevated him into full god status.
Yep.
Which without it, actually, I don't actually know how much I feel like that contributes to his role in Infinity War, because it seems like Infinity War is about everybody against Thanos. So I'll get into it in Infinity War later, but I did really like them building on the idea of him being a god separate from his weapon. You know, he is the god of thunder, and or is it thunder or lightning? It's thunder, right?
Thunder.
Yeah.
Yeah, even though he uses lightning like Emperor Palpatine. But they do a fantastic job, like finally saving Asgard and making it much more real of a place as opposed to this like fantastical thing, which was like really original when it came out in the first Thor, but in the second Thor just kind of like wore itself down, kind of played itself out. So
also, it really visualizes his strength again. I'm going back. I mean, it pits him against to what the MCU has classified as the strongest being is the Hulk, right? So it puts him against him and shows that he can do more than hold his own. I mean, he essentially beats the Hulk up, and the only person we've seen beat up the Hulk, it comes after Thor Ragnarok, but is Thanos. And Thor was pulling some of the same punches in that arena fight against Hulk that Thanos did, like punches to the gut, stomach, and he was right there, and then he got electrocuted and got saved. So it really puts his strength out there, and it's like a joke that Hulk is the strongest in Thor Ragnarok. But I mean, in my mind, I think Thor is the strongest Avenger. I mean, he's a god, right? So
yeah.
Yeah, he's immortal. I think it plays into it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
See, I like and I dislike the fact that we don't get more clarity on their actual status as gods, as what it means. Then again, I feel like if they started bringing up power levels and shit like that, I'd immediately tune out and get super bored, right? So it seems like
levels, so I'm a Dragon Ball Z guy, so I love power levels, man.
That would be so terrible if they introduced that into the MCU. Yeah, but getting to understand more about Valkyrie, getting to see a more storied and rich past of Asgard, I thought was one of the most super interesting elements of it. I think do we already have a podcast about Ragnarok?
Yeah, we were talking
okay.
about it.
Okay, cool. Well, then maybe we can just top it off and just give any final closing thoughts. For me, it was definitely the most entertaining Avengers movie. I mean, MCU movie I'd seen, and for that reason alone, I thought it's definitely one of my favorites. So.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you there. I mean, the only other thing I can think of is Guardians of the Galaxy, but
which is very similar in theme,
very
almost.
Similar
Yeah,
and like very well done. Great story, really builds onto the universe. And I mean, we can get into Infinity War, but like, there's a lot of these movies. They rely on the sequels and the prequels to really stand on their own. And at this point, based on the universe they built, I don't think that's a negative towards the movies. A lot of people have the argument, how does it stand on its own, though? At this point, if you're a Marvel fan and a fan of this franchise, it shouldn't have to stand on its own. I mean, it can build on what they've built from the previous movies to add to the story, the characters, and the layers. So, again, great movie. I have nothing but praise for this movie.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and it's funny that you said that, Akash, because before Sunny and I were talking about, because we were talking about Black Panther a little bit, and what really constitutes these movies as like a good movie, and whether or not it being part of this Marvel universe, if that adds to the movie, and whether or not it can stand on its own, or whether or not we like this movie just because there's implications that we understand in the universe too, in this Marvel universe, and yeah, I mean, I think there are a few that do stand on their own. And Ragnarok is just because it's a comedy. It's not necessarily like it is a superhero movie, but it's really not. It's a comedy, and it ends on a tragedy, which is really interesting too. Unlike most of the superhero movies that we've seen. But yeah, no, I mean, I 100% agree with what you guys were saying.
Right on.
Yeah, pretty good segue to the next topic, right, Sunny?
Yeah. So, next movie to come out in the MCU is Black Panther. It takes place partly in between Avengers Age of Ultron and Civil War, as well as after the events of Civil War, I assume, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, so I saw it with Beth for the first time this morning. I mean, she saw it for the first time. I'm seeing it for the second. She loved it. Yeah, she saw it for the first time. I'm rewatching it for the first time. And it for being an origin story, I think it is so much more than any of the other origin stories that we've seen. For whatever reason, maybe because we already kind of know Black Panther and T'Challa a little bit from Civil War, or maybe because of the broader MCU universe that it builds off of, or maybe just because it's like it's culturally distinctly different. It just felt way more refreshing of an origin story than I feel like we'd seen in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I actually watched it for the first time today, and it's good. I mean, it is unique in its own way, but I don't know if it feels like a Marvel movie. It definitely does, and I feel like it follows the typical Marvel story more than like Thor Ragnarok did, for instance. And I really liked it, and I think it is because of that cultural influence. It was something that we didn't see in a part of the world that we hadn't seen before, and we're 18 movies into this universe, and we still get to explore like a different thing. Wakanda, we didn't really know what we had heard about it, and it had been referenced, but it was cool that even this deep into this journey that we're on with Marvel, there's something new that we could explore, and that was really, really fun too. And it was the characters. I think the female characters in this movie were amazing. And there's a character-driven story. I wouldn't necessarily say the story itself was that captivating, but they did have a good villain, which is very rare in Marvel as well. There's not a whole lot of good villains besides Loki. I think Michael B. Jordan's character, I forget his name, Killmonger. Yeah, he was awesome. I mean, the character's fucking awesome. Michael B. Jordan is charismatic as shit. He's like, I love seeing him on screen, and he's just like captivating. So they did all the right things that a lot of Marvel movies didn't. But I still think the story was familiar. You kind of could see it coming. At least for me, you could. I don't know. I mean, Yeah, I mean, I'll let Akash go.
I mean,
Those are my thoughts.
sorry, my viewing of this movie has been like over 2 months. I haven't rewatched it since, but I echo a lot of what you guys are saying. But to Jason's point earlier, I mean, he is the second best villain in the Marvel Universe behind Thanos, in my opinion. And just off the top of my head, the third best would be the bad guy from Civil War. His plan to just pit them against each other was brilliant. He was, and his the reasons why he did what he did were just laid out really well from the Age of Ultron, and just perfect. I mean, the best. I mean, even though his backstory wasn't that great, I mean, he goes third just because the rest are all just shitty bad guys with just one motive of finding the Tesseract or find a stone or something.
You put that guy above Loki?
Yeah, for sure.
Really?
I mean,
okay.
Based on the first one, we don't know much about Loki other than he's just coming to take over Earth. His intentions aren't that clear, and that's
Well,
just
he's like adopted and stuff. He's got like mixed ambitions, which is, he's an ambiguous character. He's morally ambiguous.
Yeah, but I think a lot of that is built off of like sequels and stuff. I'm just saying, as a standalone movie, like Killmonger's motivations were, I mean, they're
kind of noble in a way, almost.
Very. I mean, his speech right before he passes away is probably one of the best death speeches in the Marvel history, like in the movie history, right? But yeah, again, great female characters, great action. Some of the best action combat scenes in any Marvel movie, I think so too. Just the vibe of the movie itself was also very well constructed for being outside of the Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor Ragnarok universe. It was based in the US, but didn't have that bluish, steelish color palette. It was more vibrant. And also the whole story behind Wakanda was really well told. It's a great origin movie for not just one character, but a group of people, a whole nation. So I think it was done really well.
I want to echo something Jason said earlier about like the female characters. What was just unbelievable to me is that they were able to introduce so many good guys that you cared about. That despite only being in this movie, or it like only introduced in this movie, they gave such a rich enough backstory and such compelling dialogue to like nail who they are as people that you care way more about them than you usually care about the protagonists' side characters, who are just kind of there to reinforce the protagonist. Whereas in this one, they all are so rich and like with their own motives. Like Shuri is just awesome and hilarious as a techie. She shines every time she's on screen.
Yep. She's funny too, She's hilarious.
Yeah.
She's the comic relief. But we spend a lot of time with these characters, more than we do with most sidekicks.
That's true.
So we do develop that care and concern for them. But and it's also their performances. I mean, it's like in the first 15 minutes of the movie, I was distracted by the accents. It was a little bit, it was a lot. And as soon as like that went away, it was just these like really bubbly, vibrant, rich characters came out. And like, I mean, I don't know how much of the story that they really gave us behind them, but just, the performance, like just killed. I loved them. And I had seen Infinity War first, so I knew I'd recognized a couple characters. So I knew that they had plot armor through this movie. So, I still, I mean, it was awesome. And honestly, the battles in this movie, it was the small individual battles that were my favorite. Like the kind of the large scale battle at the end, what wasn't as fun. I just love the intense, the challenge scenes. Yeah, and those are a lot more fun to me. I like the smaller individual. And they shot them really well too. So more so than the large, because that large battle at the end kind of felt like the battle scene from Infinity War. It's just different bad guys, but we're in the same place. It's similarly shot. I don't know. Did you guys feel that when you were watching Infinity War? Did it feel familiar to Black Panther?
Only after having watched Black Panther after Infinity War, because I didn't have it fresh in my mind. Yeah,
I can't comment. It's not fresh on my mind enough to really make that comparison.
But no, like Beth needed to go use the bathroom in the middle of the movie, and I kept thinking, I was like, I wonder how close that main battle scene is, because that would be the perfect scene to miss, right? Because like in a lot of these movies, these big battle scenes are just getting so played out that they just kind of don't mean anything. The stakes aren't as real in a lot of those scenes. It is in those really intimate one-on-one combat scenes where like you're literally at the edge of your seat at the beginning, and then at the end when he fights Killmonger, and you're just like, oh shit, did he like actually get thrown off a waterfall? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, those scenes are just way better as action scenes. One, because of like the more in-depth choreography, but also the context and the real stakes that are behind it.
Dude, I just love the imagery in this movie and like the way they use the technology. The technology was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It was just also the art behind everything too. And you know, the resurrection scenes or whatever it was when he would drink the water. Yeah, that was so cool when he went to the land of the ancestors and stuff. Really, really neat, which, you know, we were talking about, you know, Sonny and I were talking about these movies are getting better, at least in my opinion. Like the Marvel's just trending up. You know, all these movies, like they made a Thor movie awesome. You know, every movie's getting better. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the reasons why is because we get this imagery that reminds us that it is like comic book, like we're in this Marvel universe, and it ties in these like really, really awesome, deep characters. But like those are the kinds of scenes that I just absolutely like gush over. You know, just those amazing, like that scene when he's like in the Sahara next to that tree with the former Black Panthers was really, really cool.
Oh, the Jabari tribe, their like homeworld. Like where you had that gorilla holding up the that plank, you know, where they hang out, and all of those different kinds. Even though they're all, you know, CG, they just look more comic booky and more straight out of what you would see in the weird kind of art direction that you don't normally see on film.
And that's what Black Panther does really well, that they carry on in Infinity Wars. They blend in the CG with reality. When I say reality, real characters, like non-CG characters, extremely well. Like I wasn't able to tell a lot of what was CG, what wasn't. I mean, besides obvious, you know, like action set pieces, which you can know. There's no way you choreograph that, but the way they were able to just jump from scene to scene without any disruption to my mind. As the question, whoa, is this like a CG scene? It's not. It was never in question. I think seamless transitions there.
Yeah, the only scene that I really, really noticed was CG, and I didn't understand why, was when they bring back T'Challa the second time, or they have him drink the potion the second time, and they cover him with snow. And, it's like, that was so CG. You know,
those were obvious
CG. Yeah, like, and why did they like, you know, cut the budget on that scene? They could have used like real snow, right? Like,
or white sand even, right? Like, didn't have to be snow.
Like they were so obviously like acting, moving their hands. They just imposed this. It was terrible. Yeah, but the rest of it was really incredible. It was a really, really great addition to the Marvel Universe.
I agree.
Yeah. Cool.
So let's go to the main act, buddy.
Let's get into it, man.
Actually,
quit the foreplay.
Wait, I'm gonna add just one more, just one more second here. One question.
All right.
So he drinks the leaf, and he gains the power of the Black Panther, right? But what does the suit do? Because in Civil War, we saw him do like he ran super fast. He was pretty strong too. But that was before he drank the stuff, right?
No, so I think
his father just died. No,
so I think what happens is like the King and the Black Panther roles are generally the same, but they don't have to be. Like I think his dad was too old to be Black Panther, so he made his son Black Panther, even though he was still king. And so that means he probably took the flower, but maybe didn't visit the ancestral plane because it wasn't like the full coronation or something like that. That's my guess.
Jason. That's kind of plot hole-ish because even with age, superhuman strength doesn't just go away, right?
Yeah.
But then again, like even if you're still an old guy, just like why bother being Black Panther?
He might just because there's no threat to Wakanda, he might not have consumed any of that secret sauce. So he probably just wasn't like you guys are saying, he probably wasn't Black Panther at that time, but just T'Challa or whatever the title.
No. I think he just wasn't king. I think he was Black
Panther. I'm talking
Panther.
about the king. Like he didn't have the powers, but he still had the title. Yeah.
But I thought you can't have the powers unless you're the king. That's as they explicitly. I think it's just a little hole there. That's all right. I mean, I'll forgive it. You know, I think.
Well, no. The thing you have to remember though is when he first gets challenged, he has to take the drink to get rid of his powers. So that means he had his powers. Like he was given the flower. So the real question is, can you be given the flower without being king? And I think it's the answer is implied to be yes.
So it must have been all right.
Or maybe
You know what
because
I mean?
there was a threat on, when his father was assassinated, there was a threat
Yeah.
on the homeland. So there's just
Yeah.
like a law of secession, no questions
Mhm.
asked until he comes home, and then they can formally do a challenge because like protect the homeland first, and then come back and we'll figure out who's gonna be king next.
Yeah, you know what? I think actually we should just put this podcast on hold until we get our hands on the Wakanda Constitution. That tells us exactly how all this works.
I mean, I want to know. Okay, I mean, I want to know if this was any other movie, we would be like, what's going on here? But
Marvel, we demand answers.
Yeah.
Answers to
I
this.
just want an explanation. Just a tweet. Give us a tweet that tells us why we're good.
Investigative journalism at its best. Get the WAPO on it ASAP.
Yeah, secretly there was a secret coup, and T'Challa snuck out a flower,
Yeah.
and now we got to expose him.
All right, whatever.
All right, now we're ready to move on.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yes,
Let's move
sir.
on.
All right, then let's just dive into it, man. What did you guys think after coming out of Avengers first time?
Amazed. I mean, I was just in awe of what this movie accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
Melding in the number of storylines and characters. No movie has ever done this before.
Yeah.
No franchise has ever built up to this penultimate part one movie ever. And the way that they were able to execute the backstory of Thanos while still progressing the story of our other main characters that we've seen movie after movie was done so well. Man, I was just blown away by this feat that they accomplished in this movie. What did you guys think?
I loved every minute of it. There was not one moment. Well, okay, I take that back. During the Wakanda battle scene, right?
Yeah.
But aside from that, not a single moment where I was bored or could not wait to see what happens next. It was mind blowing. And then when it ends, I'm just like, nah. There's still got to be like another half an hour left, right? Like,
right.
and then of course it doesn't, and then you're just kind of left in your seat, wondering like, holy shit, they did it, right? they pulled it off. What happened in the comics,
Right.
and then they nailed it flawlessly.
Yeah, I agree. I loved every second of it too. I was just waiting for the bad part, and it just never came. It was amazing. The character interactions were just incredible. The way they blended the different styles of the movies and made it into one movie was flawless. And they made the bad guy, which we were just saying they do really terribly in Marvel, they made him the best part of the movie, and they made him the central character. It was his movie, and it was like his intentions that they were trying to stop. And yeah, like this is the buildup, 18 movie buildup, and they ended on like a sad note, and they still get you to like care so much about these characters. Yeah, I mean, I think I told you guys before, I was really hoping I wouldn't like this movie because I wanted to come here and just have fun and argue with you guys, but it was so incredible. Like I loved it. I really, it's my favorite Marvel movie, I think.
We'll save that for the Star Wars franchises, Jason.
Yeah. But it was just the buildup was so much, and it was just it felt like too big of a task that it had to fall short, and I don't think it fell short anyway. It just did justice to every character. Yeah, it was so great. It was great.
Thanos' motivations is so simple yet so deep and perfect. It couldn't be the most simple premise, yet it makes profoundly so much sense what he's executing and what he's striving after. You know what I mean? Even with the anecdote that he shows his home planet getting destroyed by them not being able to control the population. And I mean, who would have thought? I mean, such a simple concept could be carried out so well and executed so well.
Well, it was funny. That wasn't the original story, like the comic book story. He is destroying half the universe so he can impress Death, like the Death, right? And so they changed that storyline to fit for this movie, and it was because of like just population control, right? He was doing it for his own sick intentions. That it was what's best for the universe, right? And
yeah.
That's kudos to them for actually coming up with like a really cool way of evolving that story to fit the MCU,
But I'll take the counterpoint. I think as far as villain motivations go, this one was stronger, but like not the best that I've ever seen. But I think once you get past that, the execution of it and like what they are able to do with it, I think is just mind blowing. I much rather would have preferred him to do it for Mistress Death or for Hela. You know, like if they
been
brought
dope,
her back or something like that, right? I think that would have been a much more compelling motivation.
But this gives him like it makes his intentions, or gives it implies his intentions are somewhat godlike. You know,
That's true.
He has the ability to, and he has the say whether or not half the universe survives. You know, and it goes along with his character, this big, powerful guy.
That's true.
So I kind of like that.
Yeah, if they were to introduce this death character, it would make no sense to the audience, and this is just easily it's more understandable for the audience to accept, rather than to, again, build up to another character we don't know about, and it's just another like tease. So
no, I guess from the perspective of trying to elevate himself into God status, and this is his like will of God or whatever. Yeah, I guess from that perspective, the motivation makes more sense, and and then the execution is just that much better.
Right.
You know, God sent the flood to wipe out all the evil. You know, this is just his flood. You know, he's just gonna destroy half the universe. And they did the character well. I thought like digitally, I kind of forgot that it was a digital character halfway through the movie. You know, there's so many scenes, and the imposing figure that they made him was really, really great.
And I can't imagine them doing it with anyone other than Brolin's voice. His voice is so commanding. It takes in the whole room. You're immediately listening and cued in anything he's saying. You're just right there, you know. It's very powerful voice acting by Brolin.
Yeah. So let's just jump into the movie and go stone by stone. So movie opens with him already having the Power Stone that he stole off screen from the Nova Corps. And then, so the first stone that we see him retrieve is the Space Stone from the Tesseract. However, so I think actually this scene sets up the movie, I think, in a brilliant way, which becomes clear as the movie goes on, that all of these stones will require a form of sacrifice, or at least all of the stones that we see him obtain. Someone has to, he either has to sacrifice something, or someone has to sacrifice someone or the stone in order for, like, you know, something, in order for Thanos to move on and for at least some people to stay alive. So the very first one that we see is Loki. He gives up the stone and then tries to kill Thanos. Or actually, sorry, Thanos is about to kill Thor and threatens that Loki gives up either the stone, either the Tesseract, or Thor's life, right? And then we see Loki fake it out, but he doesn't. He gives it up in the end.
He has a gauntlet like up next to Thor's forehead, and he's just like shocking him. That was crazy. But you know what was brilliant about this was the opening scene, and you know they weren't fucking around. You know, we're a minute in and Thanos shows up. There's no build up. Like, we know who Thanos is. They know that the audience is already, like, we know what's up. We're up to we're caught up. We're ready to go. And right away he beats up Hulk. You know, the character that nobody beats up. You know, Thanos beats him up right away and just kills Loki. Like, just in the first 5 minutes, we've seen the most powerful Avenger get wrecked and our favorite villain just get murdered. And it just sets such a tone for who this guy is. You know, he came to play, and nobody's safe at this point. I love that.
That moment easily was, like, as pulled in as you are because of how immediately it jumps into the shit. That moment I was like, holy shit, this movie is going to be unlike any other ones. And I'm really, really sad right now that Loki died. And I can't imagine how sad I'm going to be throughout the movie as other characters die. Right? If I'm sad, if I'm like almost bawling 5 minutes in, this movie is terrible.
And this scene is that much more impactful if you watch it right after Thor Ragnarok. Because Loki's death, I mean, I'm starting to think that Loki's just sacrificed himself to save Thor in that scene. He knew that there was no way he was going to kill Thanos. I think he understands Thanos' power, because didn't he conscript him to take over Earth in the first movie? So he knows what he's up against. Like, there's no way a knife is going to kill Thanos. I think that's his ultimate sacrifice to save Thor, and like a final message to his brother saying, you know, after all the bullshit I've done to you, like, I actually do love you. Saves his ass. And then another thing we get to see is him face off against Hulk, and just another visual representation of how fucking strong Thanos really is. Great opening to the movie. Fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Part of me wonders how much of his strength was derived from the Power Stone when fighting Hulk. I think it would be too cheesy and too expected for them to have an eventual fist fight just between Thanos and the Hulk, like somehow after they remove the gauntlet and rob him of those powers. But I would really enjoy seeing something like that.
I would love it too.
Yeah, because I'm almost certain that, like, despite the fact that we know Thor can beat the Hulk, Thanos is not on the same level as Asgard. I think, whatever his species is.
I see.
Yeah, and what's funny, like we were saying, that Thor is kind of the perfect intro into this movie. Ragnarok is a perfect intro into this movie. It's funny how we see Hela just casually pass by the Tesseract. Remember when she's down in the treasure trove, and the gauntlet is fake. Yeah, she throws the gauntlet and says it's fake.
Oh, and then she walks by. I think she says something like, "Oh, that's
No, she's like, "Yeah, that's pretty good." Yeah,
that's pretty good, right? Something like that. Yeah.
Good. And then we see Loki at the very end when he's putting like the demon's head in the flame.
Yeah,
we see him pass right by it. So we just saw him obtain the Tesseract. So it's just like such a beautiful. We know the whole story of how we got to this point too, which is great.
Yeah, which leads to a great moment when Thor's like, "You really are the worst brother."
Yeah,
because like anybody who doesn't know Loki's backstory would just assume that it was destroyed, but Loki knows that Thanos hasn't gone away yet, so this could be pretty valuable, right, in the future, even if he's himself is not going to use it for anything.
But then they send Hulk back. They send Bruce back to Earth, and then that's the end of Hulk, which was really surprising because they misled us in all the previews. We saw scenes of Hulk running around, so they did a good job. They did a good bait and switch there.
I agree.
Well, so the next stone that he obtains, again off screen, though we see a scene right after, is the reality stone from the skull rock floating in space called Nowhere. Leading up to that, though, when they transitioned to introduce the Guardians, I thought that was so classic Guardians. Yeah. I was like, for a minute, I almost thought that this was directed by someone who did the Guardians, because in general, that James Gunn is his name, right? Has just done such a great job of doing wild integration of characters and synthesis of characters. But when they transitioned to it, I was like, man, they nailed it. Not only did they nail it, but they've already shown us the world without the wildness and the wackiness of the Guardians, and just immediately confirmed okay, they get it. They get the MCU at a very high level, so they're not going to have any problem melding it all together, which obviously proved itself throughout the movie.
I had such a smile on my face. That was one of the big, even when I left the theater, that's one of the biggest takeaways was that scene. Because it's intense. You're already plugged in. Holy shit. And then there's the music plays. And then you're like, oh yeah, I'm watching a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Right. And again, it's just the brilliant way that they blended these movies, or they kept them true to how they felt. They all felt so familiar. And when they crossed over, and Thor and the Guardians are the closest together. I mean, especially Ragnarok and Guardians are the closest thematically together. Right. And it's such a beautiful, right then and there, I was like, this is going to be a great movie. They put real time and care. And within the first 10 minutes, I mean, I'm freaking out. This is my favorite movie so far, Yeah.
I completely agree with everything you guys said.
Yeah. So then we see, go ahead.
Wait, sorry. That was the Reality Stone? What you're talking about, the Reality Stone?
Yeah. So before that, we see, Thor pretty much explaining what happened to his people, and Gamora explaining everything she knows about Thanos, and then they split up, right? Half of them, which is Drax, Star-Lord, Mantis, and Gamora, go to Nowhere, and then we see Thor, Rocket, and Groot leave to Nidavellir. And I thought just that whole scene where they finally merged those two worlds, again, brilliantly executed, right? And like you said, because Thor and Guardians were already now in their current state kind of very similar in the culture of the movie, that scene was easier than before, but it was just so fantastic, hearing the Guardians say Thor's name and hear Thor call Rocket a rabbit. Right?
Yeah. The back and forth between Star-Lord and Thor, and Star-Lord getting jealous.
I thought that was brilliant.
Wonderful, right? Yeah. And what's cool too is the Reality Stone. We saw that the Reality Stone, which was that weird gaseous. Do you remember from the second? From the second Thor movie?
Yep.
And then it was given to the Collector at the end of that movie, right? So
Mhm.
it's kind of cool that those movies were already linked, like in the past, in their own like little funky way.
Yep.
That scene was great, though. The whole, I mean, it got me. I don't know about you guys, but when we first saw Thanos screaming at the Collector, trying to get the stone, and they're devising a way to attack Thanos and get him, it totally got me. You know, I thought they got it, and it was over. And then keeping in mind that I knew that this was going to be, or I heard that Thanos was just in one movie. So I was like, oh shit, did they just kill him like in 10 minutes? Yeah, no way, right? And
no way.
They played with the reality gem really, really well in this movie.
That's another thing that while they don't explicitly state the limitations of power on each of the stone, they do pull off tricks that are true to each of the stones, right? To a certain degree. So like the ability to create a reality where nowhere looks like it's still intact, and that Thanos is questioning the Collector who's alive because he's probably not anymore. That's perfect for what the reality gem is supposed to do. When he turns Star-Lord's bullets into bubbles and then turns Drax and Mantis into those like weird shapes, you know, putty. Yeah, like that's precisely what a reality stone could do. And so when they stay true to those kinds of moments, again, it just shows so much respect for the source material that it just makes the movie shine brighter.
Well, it sets a scary precedent too for his character, because now you're like any further interaction, you're like, oh shit, is this real? Is this gonna be real? You know?
Yeah. Like at what point are they gonna pull back and say like, no, the entire movie has been fabricated because it was just an alternate reality like that Thanos created, right? Which is partly what I was hoping for at the end of the movie. It's just like, no, this is they faked it.
Gotcha.
Like what a heartfelt moment too, between Star-Lord and Gamora. And when he finally does pull the trigger, and not only that, like just that establishes the Thanos's almost legitimate love for Gamora. You know, when he first gets stabbed, it's like, you know, now after the fact we see it as him. He's kind of telling her how he really feels in that moment, like, wow, you killed me. And yeah, so like we haven't gotten to that point, but when we get to the Soul Stone, this moment made that like help make that moment like deliver. You know. Like this set up the emotional climax for that moment for me.
You know, as I think you guys have heard me criticize Marvel's use of humor a bunch, and there's a couple of YouTubers who'll talk about how like Marvel has a tendency to use humor to diffuse the seriousness of a particular scene, almost as if Marvel is afraid to get serious, like, and they don't want to be taken too seriously, which is why they diffuse it. But when you want to do it effectively, you do it the way that this scene did it, right? This is how you raise stakes and generate real drama and real emotion, and then diffuse it, but not to the point where you still aren't left with like a lingering echo of those original feelings and original emotions, right? I feel like, that's how you execute it in a way to almost add tragedy to the emotion itself, as opposed to just like nullifying it.
Right.
And so immediately, like I didn't know what was going to happen, and then when it went down, I was almost as shocked as Star-Lord was, right, to see her just get taken away.
Right.
Another wonderfully executed scene.
Star-Lord's his responses to everything were just perfect to me as well. The acting by Chris Pratt. I mean, the whole interaction between Hemsworth from earlier, you know, when he was talking about how he had gained weight and stuff. I think he had actually put on a couple of pounds for the movie as well. But his reactions, like you said, were nothing was out of character for any of these guys. It was so well done, and these scenes were just set up to exemplify how the character would behave. Nothing felt out of character in any moment for me.
Yeah. So then the next stone that gets acquired, it's a soul stone.
That's right.
Is it the Soul Stone?
Yep.
Okay.
Holy shit, dude. When Thanos takes Gamora back to to his ship, the Sanctuary, I think it's called, and then you see Nebula getting tortured.
Ooh.
Like,
oh wow, yeah.
That's like, as you know, as stylized as it was, it hits you.
Yeah, it does.
And maybe it's the rest of the context of the movie that's already like raised the stakes and amped up and brought a lot of emotion into it, but I don't really care for Nebula. And in that scene, I was like, Jesus Christ, like this is tough for a Marvel movie.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, we learned more about her in Guardians too. So she's really become. She felt like she was part of the Guardians at the end of it. And
she is officially a Guardian. Yeah.
Yeah, and we learned that she's the way she is because of Gamora. So she's like, Gamora's watching her get tortured with devices that was because of her as a child. Remember, every time she would beat Nebula, Nebula would become more like machine.
Right.
So yeah, that was a very impactful movie. I mean, and the only things I would say about these movies is that moment felt heavy because we've seen Guardians 2. And if you hadn't had seen Guardians 2, I don't know, that would feel kind of empty. You'd just be like, all right, this character who's bad, in the first movie she was bad. So I mean, that would be my only criticism for moments like that, is it's just, or I would say it's just more impactful for those of us who have really followed and watched every single one of these movies,
Especially because they repaired their relationship, just like Thor and Loki, right? So like watching that happen has got to be incredibly intense. Yeah.
Before they obtain the Soul Stone, how does a Red Skull end up on that planet? Isn't he originally from Earth? Isn't he from
he was ejected.
America storylines? Like, how is he over there? Like, how did he end up there?
So according to him, and then what other people have said online, it's somehow there's like a sentience behind all of the stones, and the stone judged him as unworthy. The Tesseract judged him as unworthy of possessing it, and so cursed him to guard the Soul Stone. And since he was cursed alone and loves nothing that's within reach, and he can't leave, he's cursed to always know where the stone is and know everything about who comes to get it, but can never get it himself. So I guess, that's it. But what a great surprise.
I know. Great cameo.
And what as big of a surprise to learn that Hugo Weaving didn't do the acting.
Yeah.
Because the accent for his name was spot on. Perfect. Yeah.
Great.
Why was he such a big surprise for you guys? Because to me, him showing up wasn't very impactful. To me, he just looked like a cool character that's guarding the Soul Stone.
Yeah, it wasn't cool for that reason. It was cool because we know that he didn't die. Like, it seemed pretty obvious, given like the fact that the Tesseract is involved with space, that he wasn't being disintegrated, that he's being teleported somewhere. And fans have been just begging to see him again because we know with reasonable certainty up until this movie that he didn't die and that he's just somewhere else in a different dimension or a different part of space. So to see him return was just super cool because he was like, all right, well, now we know where he ended up. In my opinion, I feel like they could have brought him back for a different reason. I unless they explain like the sentience behind the stones better, which I would love to see. I feel like it's kind of just a cheap cameo, but otherwise I was just still happy to see him.
Yeah, I thought it was a perfect cameo. It is kind of fanfare, but I didn't really care about his character. I didn't like Captain America to begin with, so it's just cool to see that. I mean, they didn't give him like a big cameo. It's just like a small piece, and he's like on this little rock in space. Made all of it just feel more epic. When they start bringing in, especially from the early Marvel movies, they start bringing in those kinds of characters and those little cameos. It makes it feel like all this really was this calculated story. Like we're here for a reason. Like all this has kind of culminated to this movie. So I like that kind of stuff. Just got me a little bit just more into it. I don't even remember the guy's name. I could care less, honestly. But it was just cool. It added to the theater experience for sure.
For sure, to the theater experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, I mean, I'm just asking you guys. It's not really related to the movie, but now that the Soul Stone is gone, what is the role of the Red Skull? So does he get to leave that planet and do whatever he wants now, or is he still trapped?
It's a great question. I think tied to that is, how did the Soul Stone get there in the first place? Like, has it ever been stolen? Like, has it just been there since its own creation or something, Right. Like, is Red Skull free to leave, or does he just stay there because it's assumed that the Soul Stone will always somehow return there or something, I think... Yeah, I mean, the bigger they make the universe, and then the smaller they make it when they tie other movies together, like, just the more of the universe you want to see, right? And the more questions you wish get answered, but would just drag the story down if they tried answering all of them.
Yeah.
I have a question too. We saw Gamora or we saw Thanos go back into Nebula's like memory, and we saw Gamora tell Nebula that she destroyed the map where the Soul Stone is.
Yeah.
Right? Did we see that in Guardians 2? Was that something that we saw, or was that added footage for this movie?
Oh, it's a good question.
Because I was curious, because I don't remember.
Oh, you mean that particular scene between
Yeah.
her and Nebula?
Yeah, because they build up. Because I mean, if you remember, kind of the build up to this too is Gamora's telling Peter, like, I know something that will help end the world. Kill me if it happens. And it's the location of the Soul Stone. So I was curious if that was. Did we know that going in, or was that? Did they hint at it?
I don't think so. I think that happened before the events of the first Guardians, while Gamora was still working as Thanos' henchman.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. All right. Yeah, because when I saw that footage, I was like, "Oh shit!" Was that would have been really cool if it was like an offhand comment. But yeah, but man, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I want to get to the scene where he gets the stone.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you guys about that. Like, what did you feel about just how Thanos played the scene? Like, did you buy it or not? Or somewhere in between?
I thought he wasn't going to get it. And that Gamora taunting him, she like laughing, being like, "This is, you want it all, but you want it all because you don't love anything. And the fact that you don't love anything is why you'll never get it all, And that was brilliant. And to see his face, he looked sad. He was like, shit. He looked sad because he's like, I'm not going to get it. Like, my plan's over. But then when they turned the scene and he's sad because, oh shit, I have to sacrifice Gamora.
Yeah.
That was such an awesome moment for me.
But I'm asking, did you buy his love for Gamora?
Oh, no, not at all.
Yeah. Okay.
Not at all. No, wait, dude, he wants to wipe out half the universe, and we're supposed to believe he cares about this girl. He destroyed her village. We saw that happen, and he just picked her out of the crowd because she looked cute, I guess. I don't get it.
I think the movie tried to make us believe that he had loved her, but I didn't buy it.
So if I have one complaint, that is my particular complaint.
Yeah,
I completely forgot. I have another huge complaint, which we kind of skipped over because we get an introduction to the Mind Stone before we get to see the Guardians, and I do not buy for 1 second the relationship between Wanda and Vision. I think that is the corniest part of this movie. I think it's the most ham-fisted part of this movie, and I refuse to buy it. It's so dumb to me.
I would argue that, man, because he has the mind.
Argue that, Jason.
He has. I don't necessarily like it. I mean, I think it's kind of it's not my favorite parts of the movie, and that whole segment in Age of Ultron when they're like, making salads or whatever that they're making in the kitchen, that was so stupid, right? But it makes sense why they would have a relationship, because she was corrupted with the Mind Stone, right? Or they used the Mind Stone to conduct experiments on her that gave her these powers, and he's made of the Mind Stone. So I can kind of see why, like from a comic book standpoint, there would be some kind of attraction there. But I think it's stupid, definitely stupid. But I don't think it's illogical in this universe.
Yeah, but that's a lot of speculation. There's not enough on camera for me to buy that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue too hard because I don't like it either. But
no, I think what's funny is if they have a relationship, it's because of the Mind Stone, but it's almost more like it's because they come from a common ancestor. So it's more like they're siblings related than they are like lovers in some weird way. Regardless, I'm glad we didn't spend too much time with them.
Right.
I also did feel it was kind of weird when like she could heal him, but not enough for him to like be actually healed and be able to fight like on his own. I don't know. I thought that was strange, but
the movie actually would have been better if he got the Mind Stone first, and then the bigger battle was for him to get the Time Stone last. And it would have led to them all like fighting around Doctor Strange and trying to protect him. And we could have got all the Avengers together in the same scene, rather than have that unbelievable love between them be like the last scene that we see before he gets the Mind Stone. I understand why they did it, but I think maybe they could have redone the story to have him get the Time Stone last.
I liked that he got the time stone earlier, and I kind of wish he
Yeah.
got it even earlier. Because I like the idea of just playing with
Time.
time. It would have been really cool to see a couple of them get destroyed, and then he gets the time stone and just goes right back and erases everything. Just let the good guys win, just to go back in time and watch them lose. I like them playing with that too, and it's kind of perfect for his character.
I think
kind of playing with children. Yeah,
I'll say I think they played it out in, I think, the best order that I could think of, because I think what they really wanted to do was make Vision's death a focal point. And in that regard, I think they didn't do as good a job as they could have, because I think we had already seen too much death by that point for it to be super impactful. But I thought, and we can talk about it more when we get to that stone, but I thought they did it right. Yeah.
I mean, it's arguable, right? I mean, Vision's only been in, what, 2.5 movies maybe?
Yeah. And that could be the reason why he didn't feel as impactful, is because, he's not as old as some of the other Avengers.
He's not a compelling character.
You know,
it was my favorite. It's my favorite version of him, though. I enjoyed him the most in this movie than any other movie. And it might be because he was abdicating to kill himself, which might add that to
wild.
Yeah. It's a great, good idea, dude. Good idea. Let's get
let's do it, Vision. Yeah.
Let's cut the cord. Let's get him out of here.
So the next stone then is actually, sorry, right before we go to that, I will say I was also kind of bummed that the Soul Stone, despite the fact that we got to see Red Skull again, that the Soul Stone was on Vormir, just some planet out in the middle of the galaxy floating around at some kind of holy temple. I was really hoping that one of the other theories would have come true, like that the Soul Stone was in the meteor with the vibranium. Yeah. Although maybe that would have been too on point with black people having soul.
Like
that, right?
Yeah.
I also would have really loved if Heimdall was like the Vision kind of equivalent of the Soul Stone, because he can see all souls at once, right? He sees everything. So I thought I felt like that would have been a really great reveal, is that somehow Heimdall was a Soul Stone. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Were you in general happy with the story behind the Soul Stone?
Yeah, I didn't really question it too much, just because
it was the one
knowledge on my part.
It was the most rushed of all of them. It was the one that we hadn't really seen or known about. I mean, it was, at least for me, unless I'm missing stuff.
No, because they introduced its location, pretty much its existence in this movie.
Yeah,
I could definitely sympathize with that. It feeling rushed.
Well, you know what I will say though, I did buy Thanos' love for Gamora way more than I bought Vision and 100%. That even in the 10, maybe over this whole movie, 10 minutes that we see them together, that is more believable than that other storyline. But before you guys jump away, I want to just comment on Nebula's actual death scene. When we pan to her dead on the ground, we hear the thud, and then we see her laying her body strewn across the ground. I thought it was really well done, because you can't really show too much blood, but we see a little bit of green splatter in her hair, put in a way to make her death feel real and impactful. And I thought that
Gamora?
Gamora's death.
Oh yeah, okay.
Sorry, did I say Nebula?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I thought that was done really well, and kind of was sad after seeing that.
Yeah, and then when he wakes up, I guess after the dream, and then in the water, at the base of the mountain or whatever, and he's just holding the Soul Stone. It just you could see the glimmer in his eye. It was so wonderful. Yeah. Watching him get the stones is just so pleasurable throughout this whole movie.
Dude, it's so crazy that it's just this guy was introduced this one movie. We got introduced to him really in this movie, and those moments are still somehow impactful of this digital character. I mean, I don't know how. It's just so brilliant the way that they said
made him the main character.
Yeah, and made us give a shit, and because watching the movie, I was happy he got it, but I also was really sad, I want to see it because this is going the direction I want to see out of a movie, and what we haven't talked about were his children, the Black Order. We're seeing kind of fight scenes along the way too. And what did you guys think of those guys or those characters? Because I thought they were kind of forgettable except for Maul.
Yeah,
that's his character.
Maul was really awesome.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah, actually, that kind of just brings us to the Time Stone then. So we skipped a lot of story because the Time Stone really revolves around Tony Stark, Doctor Strange,
Mm-hmm.
and then eventually the other half of
And Peter.
Peter Parker.
and Spider-Man,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah. Yeah. So why don't we just like dive through that whole arc?
Sure.
Like, what did you think of, Spider-Man getting involved? Like, I thought his way of getting involved in the action, I thought was a great way of bringing him into the story.
It was in the previews, but it was awesome.
Mhm.
That scene, his hair standing up, great.
Yeah.
And how those characters jump from set piece to set piece, I think was done flawlessly.
Mhm.
From battle scene to battle scene, they sneak onto the ship. Then there's a set piece of the fight sequence on the actual ship, and then they get on. I believe it's Titan.
Mhm.
Yeah, those are very believable and didn't feel like, oh, we're just going from one place to another. It didn't seem like they were just jumping around. I thought it was done seamlessly.
Mhm.
Where did Wong go? He just kind of disappeared, right? Like,
He went back to
he
the
went
Sanctum Sanctorum.
Yeah.
what's
He
he
said
protecting there? Just
he just says it's like Earth is left undefended, like through this network of temples. So he's just gonna stay there
Gotcha.
and keep it protected. Yeah.
I liked in the sequence how flawlessly they handed over the Iron Spider suit to Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
He was just going in space, and it was like necessity. Like, okay, I'm gonna die, and then he's just like, here's your suit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
It wasn't
it
some
was just
special anointing or anything, right?
yeah.
Just
After
like,
he turned it down in Homecoming, right? Remember, he rejected it in Homecoming, and this is like, yeah, we got it anyways.
There was an
cool.
anointing scene which was really great when Stark is like, "You're officially an Avenger now," and does like the cross on the
Yeah.
sides.
Yeah.
Peter Parker had a lot of funny scenes too. It's like, "What's your name?" It's like Doctor Strange. It's like, "Oh, we're using
A fake name.
Using our
names
names.
then?"
Yeah. Well, that was great because I'm not a huge fan of Doctor Strange, but the supporting cast around him in this movie made me really enjoy or appreciate his character even more, and especially the back and forth between him and Tony Stark, because there's a lot of parallels between those two characters. But it's
A lot of
cool to
brain
see.
power there between the two.
Well, and they're just like really, really smart and cocky, and the kind of like just rich, conceited guys, And it's cool to see after everything Doctor Strange went through, he seems to be a lot more mellow now. Like he's kind of seen different dimensions, so he's not so quippy anymore,
He still seems kind of smug. Like him and Stark both had like humbling experiences, yet they just come right back to where they were before. We're like still pretty smug as fuck,
He's a three-eyed raven in this movie.
Yeah.
He's
Oh my god.
What's really great is that Doctor Strange is like the king of his domain now, right? The realm of realms, like he understands better than anybody. But when it comes to like actual Earth's defense, Tony Stark reigns supreme. So having them both kind of butt heads while it's Strange obviously knows about Stark, and he's like an international celebrity, right? So everybody kind of knows what's been going on with Stark's business and shit. And yet Doctor Strange is like both arrogant and humble about the fact that like he knows way more about the universe than Tony Stark has forgotten,
Oh, you silly boy! You think that's cute?
Yeah.
Big on Earth. That's cute. Yeah, he's like, I'm protecting your dimension, dumbass. Or what is that? I'm protecting your reality, douchebag.
Yeah. And even after doing that, I feel like they, at least through that battle scene, and then when Tony Stark like pretty much rescues Doctor Strange, I feel like, okay, cool. Now they're on an even level, and now they can like start plotting together as opposed to like continuing their dick swinging contest.
That was interesting too, because I thought Doctor Strange. First off, they both went head to head on Thanos in these scenes, and I thought Doctor Strange is really the only one besides Thor that could hold their own against Thanos. Like Thor had like the lightning, and he's just has that godlike power. Doctor Strange was like using magic, and I feel like he showed a really good match one-on-one against Thanos, even though Iron Man made him bleed. He was the only one that like really put any damage on Thanos, but. I don't know. What did you guys think of those two and the fact that they both like, went one-on-one with Thanos? Because I thought it was kind of cool. It was cool to see how strong they are individually.
I think like the Tony Stark kind of operates in the material realm of combat, where he just has to punch and blast and fly away and shit. Like those are his only tools, right? Whereas Doctor Strange can operate in a much higher plane of combat. And so I feel like Thanos pretty much needs just the Power Stone in order to duke it out with Iron Man, whereas he has to make more creative use of his stones if he wants to keep up with Doctor Strange. Like, for example, I think he uses the Reality Stone in order to collapse all of the Doctor Stranges back into the single Doctor Strange, right? So, like, definitely have to be a little bit more clever because you're not just throwing fists and stuff, right?
Right, yeah.
It would have been nice to see Doctor Strange take him to another reality and kind of trap him in the same way that he fought against Dormammu and just kept repeating that time loop over and over. They could have been a little bit more creative
escape from that or something like that, right?
Yeah. That would have been nice to see Doctor Strange in his own element, kind of, rather than fighting in a material, more realistic world.
Actually, speaking of that, one stone we didn't get to see actually be used kind of independent for its own actions. Actually, two of them, the Soul Stone and the Mind Stone. Mind Stone is understandable because he got it at the end of the movie, and once he had it, his job was done. But like, it would have been cool to see, exactly as you said, like maybe some higher dimensional combat involving the Soul Stone or something between him and Doctor Strange. Although we didn't get it, but I hope something like that will come in the next movie. Yeah.
What did you guys what did you guys think of Doctor Strange's actions to hand over the Time Stone?
I mean,
everybody just thinks it's part of the plan.
Yeah, right. It's just part of that 1 in 14 million realities that this is.
It's the only way that one reality would come true is to give him the Time Stone.
Yep. Do you feel that like softened that scene, or do you feel like that kind of? I don't know. Do you feel like it made it kind of cheap to just like hand it over? I don't know. It just seems kind of. If it's all following Doctor Strange's plan, then do we know that like for sure good is going to win now because it's just the 1 out of the 14 million. So the path has been set. The good guys are going to win.
But the thing is when as you're watching the movie the first time, you don't know that.
Yeah.
Right. Like we still don't know how it ends, so it still could end in a way that's like so irreparably bad that like, however bad it is, we still may now believe Doctor Strange when when he implies that this was the only way. But it like brings up again that element of loss and sacrifice, which is so central. Like I didn't put it into context with the Soul Stone, but very obviously he has to sacrifice something to get the Soul Stone, right? And again, here, Thanos, being such an awesome, badass villain, was able to again make someone have to make a choice between the stone and a life, right? And in this case, it was Tony's life or the stone. So like, especially in contrast to when Doctor Strange, although kind of gave it away by saying, if it comes to the stone in your life, I pick the stone, right? Of course, that means like, okay, he's going to pick Tony when it comes down to it. Again, like it still continually reiterates how Thanos is able to create situations in which there are no win-wins, right? He can't win and somebody else wins. Like he has to make somebody lose, whether it's the people that stay alive or like the people that might die.
It makes his path seem so deliberate and unstoppable, you know.
Exactly.
When everything falls his way, we're watching a snowball fall down a hill and just collect snow as it goes, you know.
And he's just as he keeps continually creating those situations, it almost seems inevitable, right?
Yeah, and he's getting more and more powerful. He got the next stone. All right, well now the next stone he gets is going to be even more powerful. It's going to be harder to stop. It's a great build-up.
You know, what a fantastic moment as well when they've actually pinned Thanos down and Mantis has got her hands on his brain. It's so good. I was like, I could not handle what was happening. I was literally at the edge of my seat because it felt like this could be the end.
Because, I mean, it's very Avengers-esque. Everyone's using their powers against a common enemy to get the gauntlet off, and they're so close. But again, it comes down to like the flaw of humans, where emotion takes over and they react emotionally when they're so close to victory is almost there. You know,
even the most useless character played a good role. You know, even Mantis, who just does absolutely nothing in this universe, somehow
she was clutch.
So clutch.
Yeah.
But apparently that's a nod to one of the comic books or one of the stories in the comic books. They almost get the gauntlet off of Thanos, and then he wakes up and he grabs it again. So I love that, like that almost like they had it, and then Peter fucked up and punched him in the face, and that was so cool. That was an edge on the seat moment, you know.
Yeah, and can we talk about the type of fight the Avengers put up against Thanos? The dude essentially throws a planet at them because it's a moon at them, right? Just because he's so frustrated with the battle. I mean, that's like his only choice at that moment. He's like, "Fuck all this! I'm gonna throw a moon at you guys. See how you can handle that." And Stark's reaction to that was hilarious.
Yeah.
They're able to keep the action and the comedy going through the whole movie as well. So Marvel's so good at that, man.
Yeah, and usually it's like in the last Avengers movie, it was Tony Stark being the primary driver of comedy in the middle of action, right? And they muted it to the point where, like, I didn't notice that he wasn't doing it, which means that he wasn't overpowering the scene, right? It means that, like, everybody was getting their share and they were just putting the action first, which I felt was awesome. Another, like, point of well execution.
I saw a comment or commentary video, an analysis video, and they were really talking about Thanos and him really treating every human as like kind of below him, as like children, you know, as just they're just like things, you know. But at the end of this movie, or at the end of the scene, you know, he gives Tony Stark like his props, you know, and he's like, you know,
that was awesome.
He doesn't kill. Yeah, I thought that was a really cool interaction. It was just he's giving his respect, like you're a formidable foe, and I hope people remember you. It's like whatever's left of the universe, I hope you make it. And you know, it shows his detachment also to life as well. You know, these guys are just in the way. He has no emotional. He doesn't really need to kill him or want to kill him. He just wants to get what he wants, and them dying is a consequence. Right. You know,
and that's another fantastic element is that he's not indiscriminate murderer, right?
Yeah,
like he had every opportunity to kill Peter Quill, and what does he say? I like you. Yeah, and then he pulls Gamora into a space portal and leaves, right? Like, yeah, and then that's the other thing. At no point does he actually have to make a deal with anybody. He could have killed Thor and then just taken it from Loki, right? Because by that point, Hulk has been disabled, Heimdall is dead, and Loki is just there by himself, right? He doesn't have to make any bargains with anybody, but he does, and which provides his own limitations on his own power, which only in the greater context makes him more powerful. Like the fact that he's able to obey his own rules, and those are the only rules he needs to obey. Yeah,
and the respect that you talked about that he shows towards Tony Stark just kind of elevates the character's power, and I don't know if character, but his power in the grand scheme of all things, his status in the universe, right? Like the respect that Thanos shows Tony Stark is like, it was incredible watching that. And again, it's crazy that I showed so much respect to Thanos and his power just after one movie. You know, he's giving props to Tony Stark for putting up a good fight. And that was a big fake out scene for me because I thought that's when we were going to see the death of Tony Stark. It kind of felt a little cheap there. I didn't like how it looked like a fatal blow to Tony Stark, yet he survives. But
well, he's got medicine.
Yeah, and nanotech, right?
Spray. Yeah, nanotech spray.
Nanotech in his body.
Yeah, I thought it was cool that Tony's suit. The advantage is that it's like infinitely healable. Yeah, pretty much, right? But the disadvantage is that you take the particles away from the suit, and then the suit actually becomes less of a suit, right? So at some point he's getting so degraded and like so many of the particles are being blasted away that he's like having to shuffle nanoparticles from his feet into his arms to make a blaster or whatever, right? Like he's literally being blown to bits by Thanos. I thought that was another great moment.
You know, we said before, like the individual moments that they give these characters, the interactions, and how they do all these characters justice in this movie. It's stuff like that, having these that whole sequence was a mixture of one-on-one fights with group fights. You know, it was like the Avengers versus Thanos and individuals versus Thanos, and then also the Avengers against the Guardians, right? When they they first met each other, and they were fighting each other. That whole funny exchange too. They do that all really brilliantly, and it serves the story, and it's not just there because they're like, all right, it's minute 38, it's time for our battle scene number 2. It just feels like it services the story really, really well.
Cool. Then let's actually, one last thing I wanted to ask. I have 2 theories on how Thanos knows Iron Man, and maybe you guys can chime in on what you think is better or throw in another. The first is Iron Man is the one who nuked Thanos' army, the Chitauri. So it's possible that like Thanos knows that like it was pretty much Iron Man who then destroyed his entire army. Then the other theory that I think is floating around is that his possession of the Soul Stone enables him to understand people immediately, even though they don't explicitly show him using it, like it doesn't glow or anything like that. I think that might be part of why he's able to like feel Tony's soul and then immediately recognize him as like a peer, like someone who's putting the fate of his planet and his people on his shoulders. And I think maybe that's what Thanos is sympathizing with. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think it's a soul stone. He knows. I mean, it's just at this point he's becoming more and more powerful, where he's like almost like omnipotent, is if that's the right word. So at this point, it's like, yeah, of course he would know. Of course this like crazy, strong, powerful being would know who Tony Stark is. So I don't know. It felt right for some reason, but I think it was a soul stone. And they kind of show that he can see into everyone. So yeah, why wouldn't he be able to use it in that moment?
Yeah, sure. I agree. But by the same token, from your first point, he should know who Thor is because he goes around conquering all these other planets as well. I mean, word has to get back to Thanos in that sense too, right?
But does he not know who Thor is?
I'm not sure. Does he know him on a personal level? Like as you're saying, I don't. That wasn't shown on screen when they interact with each other. Like
I see.
It seemed like if anything, he should know who the Asgardians are. Right.
Well, and I think he definitely does, right? Because he has a relationship with Loki already.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, never mind then. I'm just gonna go with the Soul Stone.
Cool. All right, Soul Stone it is then. Cool. And then the last stone is the Mind Stone. So let's go back in time a little bit. I think where we left off is Thor taking Rocket and Groot to Nidavellir.
Yeah, That was an interesting sequence.
Yeah. I really liked how Rocket, again, tying universes together. Rocket knows of the mythical Nidavellir, and Thor is just there to tell him it's a real place. I've been there, and that's where we're going. He's and so Rocket's excited. Just like, excited. Yeah, it just felt like a nice moment in like a movie sacked with tragedy. Just like someone getting excited about something and not about having to kill Thanos. This is kind of great.
Right. Yeah, he gets an eye as well, and a lot of the scenes between Rocket and a lot of scenes between Rocket and Thor were just so well done. Like not even just them interacting, but the set pieces and action sequences with them together. Their teamwork, they work so well together, and that's why them restarting the star. That scene was very fun to watch them work together on that.
I will say I'm quite disappointed with Peter Dinklage.
I agree. His accent was off. I mean, it was very comical making him a larger-than-life dwarf. But
that was interesting.
Yeah,
that was for the fans for sure. That was just for people at home to be like, it's a familiar face. Everyone loves him.
His voice was the sound design there was just poorly done. I think he sounded like he was trying to do something and it didn't work as well as he expected.
Yeah.
So my guess at it, having seen the movie a couple of times, is that his fists get replaced with these like literal iron fists, right?
Yeah.
Part of me thinks that I think a lot of his role was diminished by the fact that he has really no like emoting. He's like a dwarf, so he speaks in the dwarf accent, and then he's kind of generally a little bit monotonous in like as a character, but then the fact that he just has fists like blocks for hands means he can't like intonate with his hands at all, right? So if you go back and watch, you see all of his scenes are him just staring off into the distance and the camera moving side by side or moving slightly towards him or slightly away from him while he's just delivering these monotonous lines, which I felt was just like an underwhelming use of Peter Dinklage. Like I feel like that whole scene could have been made a lot better to leverage his skills, but ultimately was quite disappointing.
Yeah, I guess it was kind of weird, and there was no reason for that to be Peter Dinklage. And I think if it was any other actor, that character would still be just as kind of flat. He served like the one purpose.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. But I still really enjoyed that sequence, and there's something really...
The sequence in general,
yeah.
And there's something fun about like two of our characters in the midst of all this action and the world coming to an end, just having to do this like mundane task. That's not necessarily mundane, but they have to do something. You have to like watch them make a weapon, and it's kind of fun just to see that as like just a juxtaposition from the rest of the movie. So it was a fun break from just all the fighting.
And then Groot also giving a part of his arm to be the
Oh.
handle for the
Yeah.
axe was awesome.
One of the best moments in the movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
easily.
That could actually be my favorite moment in the movie. Because like, what better way again to merge universes and like now keep them almost like permanently tied together
Right.
than by literally someone giving up their limb and connecting with somebody else's weapon, you know?
Amazing.
Like, what a brilliant way of like finishing the thing, and also again in its very subtle way just adding more mythology to Thor. So like now we know he's a god and he derives his power from being the god of thunder, yet he himself can be stronger with the weapon and then gain strength when he needs it from a weapon, right? Like from a Thor weapon. So seeing that all Groot had to do was just sacrifice his limb, which is now going to be permanently part of this weapon, and then all of a sudden Thor gets his power back, was just so like that's awesome. Like watching an entire episode of Goku power up to fight Frieza, right? Yeah, but condensed into like 30 seconds.
Not to mention, we also see the weapon kill Thanos.
Or almost kill
Thanos.
Yeah. So, but right before that, then him beaming back down to Earth when shit is going down. Like I almost jumped out of my seat. I started cheering. I started clapping, like everybody in the theater was, and I got chills when he's like, "Bring me Thanos!" and gets lightning bolts and everything. Oh God!
When he gets the lightning, I become like a little girl, man. It's just, it's so amazing. I get really giddy, and like seeing him in Thor Ragnarok when he finally got the lightning, and then in this movie, when he just comes in and he's just wrecking shop on the army in Wakanda. Yeah, you're just like, oh fuck yeah! I just wish he was always this way, you know. I don't want to see the normal Thor. He was just so cool.
Thor's quickly becoming my favorite Avenger. Movie by movie, just to see him and his limitless power, it's just awesome, man. He might not be like as funny or witty yet, but like he's getting the full character development that the other major characters are getting, and we're really seeing Thor could be like the face of the Avengers if Chris Hemsworth wants to be, you know.
He would be great just to sprinkle him in other movies, like as soon as whatever we see, whatever conflict becomes more like, you know, universal or cosmic, has more cosmic consequences, it'd be cool to just see Thor come in, you know. It'd be cool to see Thor come in and help defeat the bad guy every once in a while, and these, you know, Marvel movies moving forward. I wouldn't mind not having his own movie anymore. You know, Ragnarok was a great send-off to just Thor movies, and it'd be cool just to see him peppered in everywhere else.
Yeah, so then we get the Wakandan battle scene, which, you know, yada yada yada, your typical battle scene. Until Scarlet Witch shows up, which I thought was badass. What a badass introduction. And then Okoye is saying,
she was
up there the whole time. So brilliant.
Wait, explain that. Refresh my mind on that.
That was great.
So they're like Black Widow and Okoye are about to get wrecked by who was it?
Right?
Yeah, so that big wheel drill thing that came from under the barrier. And then Scarlet Witch shows up, picks up all the pieces and scatters them behind her, and they like slide out and wipe out a shitload of the four-armed people. And then Okoye is like, why was she up there the whole time? So good.
That was really great.
Yeah, I agree. Man, the biggest part about the whole Wakanda scene is, you know, we don't see the Hulk at all, right? We get to see Mark Ruffalo this whole movie. That's smart in two senses. We get to see Mark Ruffalo act, so presumptively I'm assuming we don't see any of him in the second part. So in terms of like budgeting and stuff, they cleared the budget for one actor because he'll just be CGI'd the whole next movie as a Hulk. But it was just really nice seeing him in this movie in the Hulkbuster armor, and actually getting to see more of Bruce Banner, which we don't get at all. And it was just nice to see him find ways to even defeat one of the henchmen on his own, without having the Hulk as his main character, right? Like, he is more than just a Hulk. There's actually a brilliant scientist behind the Hulk. But we never really talked about how the Hulk never showed up. Did you guys buy the PTSD of the Hulk? Did he get so whooped up by Thanos that he didn't want to show up anymore? Like, what do you guys think about that?
I have a lot of questions about Thor. I mean, sorry, about Hulk in general. And just about the rules because they're so. His is the most inconsistent character to me. Because in Thor Ragnarok, he was the Hulk for 2 years. Sorry, he was Hulk for 2 years, and then he becomes Bruce again, and he doesn't remember what happened. All right, he has no memory of what happened. But then in one of the previous Avengers movies, they kind of established that he has control of when he can jump into the Hulk. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
And now in this movie, he was the Hulk in the beginning. He gets beaten up by Thanos, gets sent down to Earth, and then he remembers what happened, and he remembers it was Thanos. As soon as he wakes
up. In Ragnarok, they cleared that up, right? In Ragnarok, he states that before it felt like they both were driving the ship, and then when the 2-year span that he lost his control, it was just the Hulk. He lost all control. The Hulk was in complete control of the mind in that 2 years that he was off doing his own thing in space.
Mm-hmm.
But up until that point, there was a push and pull between the two personalities in his head.
Yeah. Okay. So I get the impression that since being on the ship after watching Asgard blow up and being the Hulk, like during that final battle scene with the wolf and then the giant, I forget his name.
Yeah.
That he's been the Hulk the whole time. And and as a result of being Hulk for 2 years, like both the Hulk personality and Bruce Banner are now like distinct personalities living within the same body. Right. So I take that to be the reason why, now he can't just summon Hulk whenever he wants to because they are now two different people.
Yeah, but that still doesn't answer why he remembers what happened when he lands on Earth and he tells Doctor Strange and Wong what happens. If it's a separate personality as Hulk, well, that was Hulk on the ship. That was Hulk.
Yeah, but he was also turning back into Bruce when he was saying, it's Thanos, it's Thanos.
But then how did he survive the fall if he was Hulk?
Well, because he was still part Hulk, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah, overall, I was still bummed that we didn't get to see more Hulk. I felt like actually...
Sorry.
I was just going to say, I felt like the first action scene was like too bombastic where I couldn't really get even a good sitting of it. I couldn't appreciate it as much because so much shit was just happening. So I got bummed definitely when he didn't show up again.
But it made it seem like the Hulk, the separate personality Hulk, was afraid of Thanos. He didn't want to go because he got his ass kicked. It was the only time he's ever got his ass kicked was by Thanos.
Yeah.
So it was kind of neat in the sense it's like, even the Hulk doesn't want to come out to fight.
Yeah,
Thanos,
you're right. There's some inconsistency there because we do see that Banner can sense the Hulk's fear if he doesn't want to come out because he asked him to come out, right? And we see the Hulk's face CG died over Ruffalo, and he's like, no, he screams no, and he just goes back. So maybe I don't know, maybe there's some inconsistency there, but we see them actually communicate a little bit more between both personalities. But I think it would have been nice, but it saves the big scene for Thor when he comes down because Hulk would have just dominated that whole battle if he was there. Set the Hulk loose and it would have been just done. Yeah,
and they're also just going to build up the tension for when he does make his appearance in the next Avengers movie. Like eventually they're going to have their differences settled and Hulk will be back.
Right.
How did he get the mech suit? How did he get the Hulkbuster suit?
It's a good question.
Tony wasn't around, so
I think Rhodey maybe was in charge of shit.
Yeah, but and also if
it's unclear.
Isn't who takes over when Stark? What's Don Cheadle's character's name?
Rhodes.
Yeah, he probably fashioned him with that, right?
Okay. Yeah.
More questions for Feige. You should send him an email.
Yeah.
Explain this.
What's happening?
Yeah, I need like a 30-minute YouTube video. You explain all the plot holes that I'm finding.
I in general though, I did like the creatures that were fighting that big battle scene. I did feel like they were generally better than your normal faceless army because they just seemed completely savage. Like tearing themselves up, trying to get through the shields. Just indiscriminate. I thought as far as mindless, faceless armies go, they were on the better end.
I loved in that scene, some of the fight scenes, one of my favorite crossover matchup characters was Bucky and Rocket fighting on the scene together. That was really, really cool. That was put a big smile on my face too.
Yeah, they're like two gun-loving mercenaries.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And Groot got introduced to Captain America. I am Groot. Oh, I am Steve Rogers.
Yeah. I love how Steve Rogers just refers to himself as Steve Rogers. You know?
Yeah.
When people ask him for what his name is, he's like a real human being.
Yeah.
Well, so is he not identifying as Captain America anymore? I guess since
so.
he gave up the shield.
Yeah, he doesn't have the shield.
Now he's just Steve Rogers.
Yeah.
And he never met Robert Downey Jr. Him and Iron Man didn't interact in this movie.
They actually didn't talk at all, right? Because he was about to
Yeah.
dial, but then the Black Maw showed up, or Ebony Maw. So then, I mean, that leads us pretty much directly into Thanos showing up, Wanda having to make the ultimate sacrifice, which I thought, despite not really buying into their relationship, I thought was a really well done emotional moment. Only to be brilliantly undone by Thanos. Again, loving seeing the stones be put to real use as opposed to just bashing and mindlessly fighting. He knew exactly how to summon the equivalent spell, programmed directly against the time stone interface, and just brought the stone back just so that he could take it out of Vision's skull. Right. I thought I was so pleased. I had been saying that one of the moments I was looking forward to the most was watching Vision die, because I just wanted to see the stone get taken. Yes. And the way his fingers just pluck into his skull and rip it out. Oh, it was so deliciously evil.
Especially because we saw his henchmen try to remove it, and it wasn't easy to remove.
Yeah.
And so he's just going in there with his bare hands.
Yeah.
And I love that it wasn't a tease scene either. It wasn't a scene wasn't a misdirected scene in the preview. Because when I saw the stone blow up, because we saw this in the previews, right? We saw Thanos ripping the stone out of Vision's head.
No.
Yeah.
No, that would have been a major spoiler. No,
Wow.
we saw the staff being used to try to take it out of his head, but that was.
Oh, is that what we saw? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't remember it that well.
Yeah. Oh, I watch those trailers every day for a month. But I thought what was really cool is when the stone was taken out, his body changes color. It's the life force was sucked out of his body.
Yeah.
And then his eyes blinked over too. Which almost made it seem like he's just kind of the hollow shell of an android, which could be maybe reprogrammed with a new brain interface, right? A new
they were working on that
Mind Stone equivalent. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the other thing that was kind of unclear is how far did Shuri get in understanding the Mind Stone, separating it from Vision, and I don't know, ideally saving his consciousness or something like that.
Yeah.
Because they have his body and they could definitely put it back in there if they needed to. Yeah.
Well, that was just such a gut punch too. I mean, it was coming, and it's just he got it. He got the last stone. He sticks it in that center spot, whatever it is, and then everything just lights up. There's this big pulse, and everyone just kind of feels it, and that was so great. And then we just see Thor come in, and right then you're he got it. Yes, all right.
Yeah. It's oh my God, it's done. Yeah,
he got him. Yeah, he stopped it. And then again, he just
was so
that
epic
time
when he
again.
gets him with the freaking axe, man.
But just such a OG, just looked at him in the face, looks him in the eye, and just goes, "You should have aimed for the head."
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just now.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the final scenes, man? That's
the
one of the best parts of the movie. I was about to
amazing.
When Peter looks at Tony Stark and he's like, "Mr. Stark, I feel kind of weird." I thought Tony was about to disappear or something. He was about to lose it, and then you see him disappearing. The emotional impact of that scene, built on from the previous movie, just their father-son relationship was heartbreaking to see him just disappear like that.
Well, and that was ad-libbed by Tom Holland, the actor.
What? Of course. Wow.
Yeah, that scene, those weren't his lines when he was I don't want to die. When he's basically saying he doesn't want to go.
Really?
That was him ad-libbed. Yeah,
that's amazing.
What was he supposed to say? Do you know?
I don't know. I mean, because if you notice, all the other Avengers just look at it and just kind of accept the fact that they're dying, they're gone.
I don't know if they accept it. I don't think they know what's happening.
Yeah, or just confused, maybe.
Confusion.
Yeah.
I don't think any of them accepted that as death.
Well, when Star-Lord is Iron Man says, "Hold tight, Peter," And the Star-Lord's like, oh man, and because he knows immediately like what that means, right? And then immediately disappears.
Yeah.
Some people want to explain why Spider-Man took so long to disappear. Was that his spider sense told him that he was going to before like the process started.
Oh my god.
Which is genius, even though it may not have been intentional. I think they were doing that because that was maybe the most dramatic loss.
Yeah.
But that's a nice explanation if you want to stay within the universe.
It's interesting to me that all the Guardians died.
Except for Rocket. Yeah.
Except for Rocket.
Yeah.
And when Groot died, the Russo brothers came out and said that last Groot that he says before he dies is him looking at Rocket and saying "Dad." So he calls like Rocket "Dad" before he dies, which is really great too. Yeah.
Aww.
That was just so emotional, and we had seen so much like destruction, and we had heard that people would kind of meet their ends here. And I mean, I saw that die. And I didn't quite believe that they were dying because I was like, well, the movie's not over. They're gonna come back. Good guys always win in Marvel movies.
Yeah.
And just to see it not happen, and then to see Thanos looking in that vision, whatever it is, and he sees little Gamora. And Gamora asking, like, did you do what you wanted? Did you do what you set out to do? And what was the cost? And he says everything. It's just like it was so like the weight was felt by the villain too, who caused all this destruction too, which was really awesome. It was like a really great way to develop that story. Like the art for Thanos, it was awesome.
So in the theater, I didn't really buy any sense of remorse that it seemed like they wanted us to see he was feeling. But then people, again, to try to reinforce the universe, said that like his connection to everyone he killed through the Soul Stone is what like it gave him at least a feeling of what that loss actually means, like trillions of lives lost. And so it may not have been remorse so much as just like overwhelming sadness from literally like it's the sadness of half the universe, right? As well as the other half being sad about the half that was lost. So
for such a mainstream movie, it's such an unconventional ending, such a beautiful ending, you know what I mean? It was just very impactful as well. But
I'm also fairly certain, so like we see him before he teleports out of Wakanda, we see him with like a charred up Infinity Gauntlet. All of the stones, if I recall correctly, they look like they're still intact, but the entire glove looks like melted as shit. And I'm fairly certain, although it's not very clear, that he has the gauntlet still when he arrives on whatever planet he's on in the final scene. So what do you guys think that means? Like, do you think the stones are spent? Do you think like they're done? Like they've been destroyed or something? Like, what do you think that like the charring of the Infinity Gauntlet actually means?
I think the gauntlet's destroyed. I mean, the rings should still be intact, right? Maybe that means one person can't wield them at the same time without
making another one.
Yeah, another one.
Yeah. Because it would seem weird that the stones would get destroyed because they're like kind of being used together. It's almost like the purpose of these stones is to have this insane power, Yeah. But what an awesome final! Just like to end it, to hit the credits on him just sitting there, and looking at this like digital character, like contemplating his actions was really, it was a refreshing way to end a Marvel movie, It wasn't a sky beam and everyone coming together and defeating a sky beam. It was just, he did it. He fucking did it.
The fucking Israel did it. Yeah.
Our heroes lost,
And the movie title just disappearing at the end of the movie.
Into dust, right? Yeah.
Dust was brilliant as well.
And then there's this string. I forgot what do you call it? What do you call like a little snippet of music?
A snippet of music.
Okay, fine. The string snippet of music that plays every time Thanos like kills someone. Like and then it's that hits you right in the heart, like at the right frequencies in that last scene when you realize, oh shit, this is the end of the movie.
Right.
And that fucker did it, and we're gonna have to wait an entire year to find out what happens.
So it's 2019 is part 2, not 2020?
Yeah, May 2019.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure principal photography is done already.
Okay.
Well, it's only a year, actually. That's not too bad.
And luckily, we'll get Ant-Man and the Wasp to maybe in an after-credit scene or something tell us more about the real loss.
We're getting Captain Marvel.
And then Captain Marvel in April, yeah.
So I mean,
wow.
unless we jump ahead to the after credit scene,
Well, no, yeah, that's the last thing to talk
Yeah,
about,
that's
really.
the thing,
yeah. I mean, I didn't know what it was, honestly, because I hadn't read
I had to
every
look it up.
fucking comic. Yeah, I didn't know what it was, but yeah, like it's curious because it seems like Captain Marvel is going to be the next movie, and it seems like she's going to play a major role. And from what I've heard, she's really, really powerful. And people are saying she might be the strongest or stronger than any Avenger.
In this, according to the people involved, like in the MCU, she will be the strongest character
than Thor?
introduced. Yeah,
Get out of here.
Yeah, stronger than Thor. I mean, which I don't know if I like, man. I
I
mean,
don't like that much either.
exactly. So hearing that makes me really nervous. Like the idea that some OP character can come in and somehow Deus Ex Machina everything back to normal,
Yeah.
frightens me narratively. Like I'm still in high anticipation, but yeah, if that's the strategy that they're going to go with, I'll be really disappointed.
well, especially because Brie Larson doesn't strike me as a powerful character. She has charisma in a different way, but not the way Gal Gadot commanded Wonder Woman. She's not.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. She's very dramatic, a very good dramatic actor. But in terms of being a superhero, we can't discredit her till we see the movie, right?
Yeah. Well, so my gut tells me that she will adopt more of like a demeanor of kind of Superman / Ebony Maw. Like Ebony Maw was like really comfortable with his powers to the point where he could like stand there with one hand behind his back and just flick things away like as he was fighting, and Superman to the same degree kind of just thinks and he lifts up into the air, and then if he thinks, he like punches you straight through the chest, like he doesn't have to really try at anything. I'm getting my guess would be if that Captain Marvel is as OP as we're hearing, that will be like what it's like to watch her on screen. It's just that she's just so overwhelmingly powerful that like ideally I think her conflict will not have to become a result of like physical combat, but more of just like she can just effortlessly kick people's asses when she needs to, but then has to do something beyond that to actually defeat whatever villain there is. But speaking of Captain Marvel, I'm also the other thing that kind of frightens me is just how they're going to introduce her as a character that's been around since the 90s,
right?
While making sense of the fact that we have yet to hear Nick Fury mention her once. She is yet to be involved in any conflict once.
It's like the Wonder Woman issue too, right? Like Wonder Woman's been around since World War I. Where the fuck was she for the rest of the wars? It's just kind of the same thing. Like you have this sleeping giant that's been there all along. Yeah. And and I think the movie's in the 80s, not the 90s. So it's like,
oh, maybe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So don't worry. There's what, 3 movies before her movie comes out too? Like I think they're going to fill in the gaps.
I think there's only Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, then I'm worried. Because we were just as worried about Thanos, and they delivered with Thanos. I'm hoping. I'm pulling up the cinematic universe here and what they have prediction.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't that concerned about Thanos. I was slightly concerned, about how they could make him a good villain, and they definitely surpassed my expectations. But I wasn't that concerned that he'd at least be a compelling villain. I think because I'm such a pedant for like universe building, me personally, probably average people shouldn't be worried, but me personally am just really concerned about how they're going to introduce that. And I would love for them to execute it. Like I would love to come out at the theater being like, oh my God, this is how you retcon a universe. Right. Not with like time travel like J.J. Abrams did with Star Trek, not by soft reboots like with Jurassic World, where you kind of just ignore one movie and then just kind of pick and choose your backstory. Like, no, this is how you sneak all of it in. Do you think there'll be any Skrull and Kree storyline involved?
Man, that'd be a lot to introduce.
Yeah.
I have a theory.
So much history to bring in, because that itself could be a cinematic universe where they lead into that as like a, what's it called? I don't know. Like it would take at least 3 or 4 movies with 3 or 4 different characters to build up that universe and a final conflict in like an Infinity Wars-esque way, if I understand that whole storyline correctly.
Mhm.
It's a lot.
I know comic book fans would be fucking crazy for that. You know,
Oh, yeah.
like, I mean, actually, they'd probably be split. Some would be like super happy to see it on screen, and then the other half would be pissed at the way that they executed it. But yeah, I agree with Akash though. They can't just like introduce this whole other like segment of the universe.
Hmm.
My theory is that I think that the people that died. Look, so we look at the people that died
Mhm.
using our knowledge of contracts, and we just look at the people that died, and it's all the people that. I mean, all the people that survived don't have movies. It's their contracts are up. All the people that died. Black Panther died. They just made over $1 billion on Black. He's not like. There's no way they can kill Black Panther off. There's no way they can kill Superman. I mean Spider-Man. We just got him. You know. So my theory is that the Soul Stone somehow is going to come into play, and all the people that survived in the Avengers are going to trade their life for somebody else who died in the Avengers. So I think that Tony is going to give his life for Peter. And they, you know, in the beginning of the movie, we saw Tony talking about wanting to be a father. And Peter was always kind of the father figure to Peter. So Peter died because of Tony, which Tony was afraid of. You know, he mentioned in Homecoming, and he was every time he gives Peter Parker the suit, and he's going to die, and it's blood that's on his hands. You know, he feels guilty for Spider-Man dying. You know, so I think that's how it's going to play out. And also, Captain America in this movie said, "We don't trade lives." That was something that came up a lot. We don't trade lives. So I think they're going to have to trade lives for this next, like the ones who died to come back to life, and the ones who are alive are going to have to sacrifice themselves. That's my theory.
That's interesting. I think maybe it was you who mentioned it or somebody else that like all the major characters, the major Avengers have lost someone close to them. Iron Man loses Spider-Man. Thor loses Loki. Captain America loses Bucky at the very end. The Guardians, well, they all die except for Rocket.
Yeah,
They
Rocket
also
loses
lose
everyone.
Gamora before everything else, right? Who else? Doctor Strange, I guess, doesn't really lose anybody. I mean, but he dies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
T'Challa. Wakanda loses T'Challa.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So there is an
that could be
untitled
an element.
Spider-Man movie confirmed.
Yeah.
Sequel to Homecoming, and a sequel, Volume 3 of Guardians of the Galaxy also confirmed.
Yeah, and Black Panther, I think, is, I guess, in talks, but maybe not confirmed. But they're definitely making another one of those.
That was made way too much money for them not to make part 2.
So, some set photos leaked that were of scenes that were obviously not in Infinity War. Do you guys want to hear about them?
Yeah.
So, no, Jason, you don't?
No, yeah, let's do it.
The thing is, like,
I get nervous like, to hear it. But
no,
yeah,
I feel like regardless of what you end up seeing, it still won't take anything away because it'll still probably be way more mind blowing than we ever anticipated.
And they're probably all fake anyway, like the Hulk scene in the trailer. So
dude, that would also be crazy if that was the case. But what we see is Thor, Iron Man, Captain America, plus I think Hawkeye, but definitely Ant-Man in New York during the original battle for New York when Loki shows up with the Chitauri.
Okay.
And all of them are wearing these little wristbands that have this like little blue device on them, which people are speculating is a time travel device. So somehow they'll be able to time travel back, I guess, into their bodies during the events of the first Avengers movie. And I guess maybe defeat Thanos that way or gain more information or do something. But that's what people are predicting will be a major story element.
Interesting.
What do you guys think?
I could see them going back and revisiting an old movie plot. That would be kind of cool because that does kind of round it all about and round it all out. You know, I could see them going back to a previous movie, but it would kind of suck. I don't want to see them rehash an old story. Like that's kind of lazy storytelling right there. You know, I want to see them solve this in a completely unique way. I don't want to see them go back.
I agree.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that too.
Yeah, I don't want to see that.
Well, we'll see. I think people think this device may have something to do with Captain Marvel. But again, it's unclear, right? Until we see Captain Marvel, we don't know what her powers are. We don't know what capacity she has to undo any of this shit, aside from just duking it out with Thanos, fist to fist.
Yeah, that would be cool. If that's actually if this is all misdirection and those scenes are actually being shot for Captain Marvel, and that's going to play the story of why she has been absent. She was overseeing all of this and not not partaking. Maybe that's going to be part of that story as to why suddenly we're hearing about Captain Marvel. So if it actually plays into under explaining where she's been all this time, then that's awesome. That sounds cool. But if this is how they defeat Thanos, that sucks.
Gotcha. What role do you think Thanos will have? Do you think he'll still be a baddie? Do you think he'll be kind of retired and brought back into the conflict?
I think he'll have to be sought out. I don't think he would reinsert it back into their lives, right? He's going to be sought out by our heroes.
What was all the talk about? I thought he was just going to be in one movie, right? What was all that talk about? Infinity Wars was going to be its own, or Thanos was going to be its own story. Do you guys remember?
Yeah. So originally, these were called Part 1 and 2, right? Then they said they're calling Part 1 Infinity War, and they won't release a title for Part 2. And then they said that Thanos will really only be in Part 1, with the title of Part 2 being a spoiler about what had happened in Part 1. So, yeah, I that could all be deception, right? They very obviously lied to us in the trailers about what stones Thanos had when he was on Wakanda, about Hulk being there on Wakanda, you know? So it's unclear to what extent he will play a role, because we really can't trust too much of what they say. But
you think they'll kill him off early then? You know, there'll be like an early end to Thanos, and the rest of the movie's like, you know, repairing all the damage or undoing what was done.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be the big question right now. Is like, are they going to move forward, or are they going to somehow move into the past in order to fix this problem? We know people that have to be brought back. So it's arguable whether Gamora needs to be brought back for the third Guardians of the Galaxy, right? There's potentially even a story element there that's kind of like Search for Spock, Star Trek, right? Where dies in the last one and then has to be somehow brought back on a side adventure in the next one.
Or it's like X-Men Apocalypse, Days of Future Past, right?
Yeah, to a certain extent.
Shit got real in the future, got to go back in time to prevent it from happening.
I don't understand why an Infinity Stone is based off something that can be recreated then. So if time travel can just be recreated by beings, then why is it an Infinity Stone? If it's
right,
like an Infinity Stone should be something that its power can only come from, like that's the only source of power
it can do. Right? Yeah, exactly. Right. It would be well. So like, what do you think about the Bifrost being able to take someone from one place in space to another? Like, arguably, that should also be part of the Tesseract, right? Or something like that. Right. So it seems like there are mystical elements that somehow have comparable powers to what the Infinity Stones can do. The easiest explanation is just to say that the way they're wielding the stones is not even close to their complete power.
Sure.
Right? I mean, I can imagine that, like, you can get really creative with what manipulating space actually means, right?
Yeah. And if like if Wanda is a child of the Mind Stone, I mean, maybe there is children of the other stones in terms of they've given their powers to other beings or other entities or even devices that continue to wield that power.
Yes, so. That would be an interesting thing. Like maybe Agamotto himself did something with the Time Stone before he put it in the eye, and like that power can be imbued into somebody else, right? That's an interesting way to think about it. Yeah. Then again, it's comics, so anything can happen,
That's
right?
True.
Yeah. It's all for game.
Yeah. Anything you can draw, you make into a reality. So.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So.
Great fucking movie, man.
Yeah, great movie.
Great movie. Just exceeded expectations all around.
Agreed.
For sure.
It completely blew me away in that regard.
And I loved how much I was hearing from people online who are themselves, like YouTubers, who themselves aren't really Marvel fanboys, and how much they enjoyed it. Because, that just means to me I enjoyed it more than they did, precisely because of all the context that I have, but yet it was still a good enough movie for other regular people to still love it.
I wouldn't say it was a complete movie, and it's not like a perfect movie as far as like its storytelling, because there's not a whole lot of development in the character. I mean, things happen, and like the character's stories progress, but there's not a whole lot of development. You know, it's just things happen, and we're visiting all these characters. Yeah, so, I mean, it's not it's not a perfect standalone movie, but it's a really interesting way to tell a story. You know, again, the good guy doesn't win in the end. You know, like that kind of stuff. And I think even if you're not into Marvel, you can have fun and appreciate just the different way the story is being told. You know,
I'm okay with no character development in the sense that this movie was you're supposed to develop all the characters to reach to this movie, right? And this is where all the development pays off, and it does. We see it a lot with all. That's why all those different character interactions work, is because they've been developed so well, and you understand like the whole comedic scene between like Quill, you know who Quill is, and like his insecurities, they've been developed. So like them pitting that against like a stud like Hemsworth, it just works, right? So I can't. I'm not gonna hold that against a movie that doesn't develop anything more. I mean, to me, it's all been leading up to this point, and it's the payoff.
Yeah, I mean, that's no knock against the movie. It's just that'd be a criticism I could see other people taking away from it. But you're right, and it is the result of amazing world and character building. You know, this is why the movie was so fantastic. Was every little moment in between was exciting. You know, just simple dialogue had so much more weight to it just because we saw 18 movies before this.
Yep.
Cool.
Well, I think that's all I got.
Yeah, let's wrap up.
Cool. Do you want to do the outro? Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. As usual, you can find us at nocamspodcast.podbean.com. Follow us on Twitter at nocamspodcast. You can follow me on Twitter at acash0902.
I'm at Sunny_Gunna.
And as usual, you have to tune in to follow Jason and hear all of his thoughts. So we'll see y'all next episode. We will do Westworld episode 5, which is actually on right now. So
shit!
Watch
Nice.
All right, guys. We'll see you soon. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Peace.
Bye.